So tonight we're going to be going over inbounds, out of bounds. We're going to kind of talk about the rule book, some of the wording that's in there. We're going to show a couple of pictures, and then we're going to go over some situations and scenarios and just kind of create a conversation to get a little bit of ideas going and see what we come up with. So,
all right, let me get this open. More flow today. Interesting. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. All right, yeah, we could go to the next page or the next slide right away, Nate. So, and sorry that the lettering is not the greatest, guys, here, but I think you can kind of get the idea. This is right out of the rule book, but 2 points of contact inside the cylinder is always inbounds, right? So 2 points of contact on the mat, inside the line or on the line is inbounds. And that's really what I want to just show you here from this neutral position. It's just showing you the 2 points of contact that are in. And it doesn't have to be two of one wrestler. It's just one of each constitutes 2 points, which is inbounds. You can go to the next one, Nate. All right, and so this one too is just a picture of the takedown scenarios. The three pictures there on the left-hand side kind of form a backwards L, talking about when you get established control at the edge of the mat, your knees can actually be outside as long as the toes come back in contact with the mat immediately. And as long as your toes are in, that's considered a takedown. So as you can see in that picture, his feet come up outside of the line, come right back down. That's still 2, as long as he's in control and has established control. You can go to the next slide, Nate. There we go. All right, that's pretty blurry, guys, but I have the book out here, so I'll read it for you. First, we're going to talk about inbounds. So Section 15, inbounds. Contestants are considered to be inbounds if a total of 2 supporting points of either wrestler are inside or on the boundary lines. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler that are inside or on the boundary lines, which is photo 11, which is what we just talked about. Supporting points are the parts of the body touching the wrestling area which may or may not bear the wrestler's weight, other than those parts with which the wrestler is holding the opponent. A, when down on the mat, the usual points of support are the knees, the side of the thigh, the buttocks, the hands, the head. When the defensive wrestler is on their back while the supporting points of either wrestler are inbounds, wrestling shall continue. In this situation, any part of a defensive wrestler's shoulder or scapula is considered to be all the supporting points. Near fall points or fall shall be earned only while the supporting points of either wrestler are inbounds. In a pinning situation, when all parts of the defensive wrestler's shoulders/scapula are on the mat beyond the boundary line, if the feet, including toes and heels of the offensive wrestler, are the supporting points, the offensive wrestler's knees must be inside the boundary, whether in contact with or above the mat. Wrestling shall continue as long as a total of 2 supporting points of either wrestler are inside or on the boundary line. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler that remains in bounds. If there's no action at the edge of the mat, the referee shall stop the match. And you can go to the next slide too, Nate. I think the next one's just talking about takedown. So really the last one I want to talk about is the Article 3 one. So in awarding a takedown at the edge of the mat, control must be established while a total of 2 supporting points either wrestler are inbounds. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler that are inbounds or while at the feet of the scoring contestant finished down on the mat inbounds, which is the photos that we kind of talked about earlier. So we're going to kind of go into these scenarios here, and we'll watch some of the videos, and then we'll kind of talk about whether we consider those to be inbounds or if they've called them out a little early, and kind of discuss what our thought process is. And then I put together some scenarios. They're kind of generic in wrestling, but it at least paints a good picture of what we're trying to get across and talk about. And we'll talk a little bit about positioning on where we want to be as we approach the edge of the mat, so that we can get a good view of making those calls.
All right, let's see if I can play this. I think I lost it when I went, but I can pull this up real quick. Hold on a second.
Okay. All right.
Yep, I'm gonna pull it up on the other device.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, let me stop screen share here.
Okay.
I'm actually going to.
Are there any questions up to this point?
Let's see if I can't zoom in on that a little bit so that we're clear.
All right.
Is that clear for now?
Yeah.
Okay.
See it. Yep.
That looks good.
All right, there we go.
So as you're watching this ref, he's kind of on the line, but he's kind of behind him. And he kind of shifts to straddle that line a little bit as the action kind of comes towards him. But I would like to actually kind of be rotated, facing, straddling the line and seeing kind of that momentum or that action come towards me. But as they're wrestling, as you can see his motion, he blows them out. Are they out of bounds right there?
No.
No, I would say no.
I agree. I would continue to let that play out. There's action still going on. There hasn't really been established clear two, in my eyes, from the angle that I'm looking at. But I think that momentum's still coming back in, especially as he hooks that arm and starts pulling him back. So I would keep that in balance. There's still two supporting points that are inside the line. And so I think that ref kind of blew that whistle a little early. Anybody disagree with that?
I just want to reference, look where the assistant ref is at also. I mean, he's pretty much taken himself out of that match completely and is not helping his official at all, in my opinion.
And I agree with you on that too, Jason. Yeah, he's really not in a position to be of any use over there. So part of that is giving, he could probably rotate even to the other side and at least help see some of those things. But all right, we can go to the next video, Nate. So Rusty showed this clip last week, but I thought it was really good. One, because it's a pretty good scramble, but two, the assistant ref is really on top of it. And in college, it's a little bit different, but they stay in bounds. And you see right here that they're on top of still counting near fall. You have the assistant ref in perfect position, pointing at the toe and saying that they're still in until it went outside of the cylinder. And then they blew it out, but he had got near fall on that. And so that's really what you're looking at, being in good position to see and understanding when you're in bounds and when you become out of bounds, being able to count that near fall or whatever's happening at the edge of the mat without blowing that too early or blowing it late and be counting near fall when they're actually out of bounds. So if you want to show that clip one more time, Nate, and just so they can kind of see it again.
Yep.
And this is a real good scramble. You know, it looks like Bo Nickel's going to take Miles Martin down and take him straight to his back, and Martin just catches him underneath just right and uses the momentum to flip him over. But everything really looks like it's going out of bounds, and Martin does a real good job of having some mat awareness and keeping his toe in bounds and getting the near fall, and that really changed the whole match and really gave him the win because Bo Nickel couldn't catch up anymore.
Important point there, Adam. College rules, 1 point of contact within the cylinder, not two. For us.
Yeah. That's a different part of, but the idea is just to know when we're looking at establishing points for inbounds versus not. But John's exactly right. You know, college is a little different in that rule or regard, but the idea of the positioning of the refs was pretty good, and you know, establishing or knowing where they were at and counting until basically
Exactly.
they were out of bounds.
Yep.
So
Excellent.
and with this, you know, I know Rusty touched on it last week, but the assistant ref can be very vocal with that too. And as he's pointing, say, you're good, so that other ref knows that he's making the right call and counting near fall. And as soon as he goes out, you could just verbal say out and let that head ref make that call. But that way you're on the same page. So communication is good in that as well. Here's another match, and this is a real close call too. And right, we're still in college matches. There's some no good scrambles, so I use them. Remember the rule is a little different when they're still in bounds, but you know, right there they were out, but that guy came. It was real close to him coming back in and being in bounds. Also, remember if they hit any part of their body outside of the mat or actually on the gym floor or on the side of the wall, you know, sometimes we have some tight spaces for gyms or tight areas that we're working in. You can blow that dead, and you know that's it. Even if the established points of contact are still in, we're out of bounds as soon as we hit the gym floor or the side of the wall or anything like that. So don't hesitate on making that call early on and prevent some issues from occurring beyond that. But that was a good little scramble. But yeah, they went out of bounds, and then you know he came back in with 1 foot right at the end. But they had already broken out of the cylinder, and in high school they would have been out about the same time. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, Adam, I was wondering, for those real fast, instantaneous going out of bounds and coming back, should you always side on being in bounds on those? Calling it inbounds?
It really just depends on the action. Now, let's say that you have a guy in a single leg position and the defensive wrestler goes to make an attempt to go, and the offensive wrestler's foot goes out of bounds and he tries to bring it back in. I try to be right on top of that and blow them out and point at that toe and say, we're out, because I don't want him to come back in and basically have an advantage at that point and get the takedown when really they were out. So I try to call that early on. Now, in that situation where there's a scramble, there's a lot of action, and you know nobody's really an advantage. They're kind of in a scramble situation. It wouldn't be terrible if they continue to wrestle and they come right back in bounds again. But in situations where you want to make a decisive call or prevent scoring from happening if they do go out of bounds, I like to make that call pretty decisively, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
It does 100%, Adam. Looking at that last video, we could argue all day long in college rules about whether or not that knee pad was still above the cylinder. But
Right.
in high school rules, they're clearly out of bounds. And David, to chime in with what Adam was saying about decisiveness, that's that be right or be wrong, but look good doing it thing. You know, don't let your call be maybe. Make your call and then stand by your call. It's okay to be wrong once in a while, but it's still your call.
Sure.
And I think also I would add to that, you know, Adam, you had touched on it earlier, you know, gym floors and walls and small spaces. So again, going out of bounds, safety first, right? And then having yourself in position to read that momentum of was it traveling out of bounds, right? And making that call at that time. So again, 2 points you touched on earlier that are important in those close situations.
Thanks, John. Yep. So yeah, you could play this one, Nate. So this one's another one example, just real good scramble. looks like there's a potential for two. They're still inside the cylinder, but this is another one where the guy's hand, I think it's his hand, actually hits the outside off the mat surface, and so they blow him out. But real good wrestling going on here. You know, right there at that point, you see his left foot come out of the cylinder for a brief second. You know, that's a situation where you probably make that call in high school and say, nope, we're out of bounds. Don't even let him establish back in. And then you don't run into a situation where you're going, oh man, is he in or is he out? His toes are back in there now, but if you can see, I think it's his left leg that's actually off the mat completely. And a lot of times with these college wrestlers, they're so flexible that they're in the splits basically and covering a lot of the surface area. But right there, you can see his left foot goes out of bounds. And they didn't call it in college, obviously, because the rule's different. But in that situation, I don't hesitate to call that out and go back to the middle, and it just makes your job a little easier as well. Anything on that?
I think again, maybe a gesture, you know, you point at the floor where he touched, you know, off the mat when you blow the whistle and make that call. And that shows everybody what you were looking at in that decision.
Yep, exactly, John. I think, is that still the same one, Nate?
No,
Or
this is a different one, number 10. This is slide 10.
Okay. So this one, I just want to talk about a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw this in the NCAA tournament, but it was pretty frustrating to me because, and this is a little bit of a side note, but that action happens and no time runs off the clock. And they go and have a huge conference over it, talk about it, look at it in review, I guess, and decide that they couldn't figure out how much time exactly ran off the clock. So they left it at 7 seconds and restarted the match. You know, when we replay this in time, if you start it over, Nate, we can count and let's just see how much time actually comes off the clock from the time that they blow the whistle to the time that he actually goes out of bounds. College rules, right? So he's still in. Okay, now we're out. That was probably about 5 or 6 seconds. I'm not quite sure why they couldn't figure out exactly how much time had run off and make that decision.
Can you answer that?
Go ahead, Rusty.
This 7 seconds took 40 minutes of time in the tournament.
It did.
And as much as I hate it, and I feel really bad for this kid from Campbell, and we have to apply this in Nate in all sports and all the time. And this is a tough one. The review committee of 4 watching the video, the chief official for the NCAA, Tim Shields, everybody involved was bound by black and white rule that if the clock hasn't started, it's bad time. And everybody counted the same as you did, Adam, and got to at least 5 or 6, maybe the full 7. The black and whiteness of the rule did not allow them to apply common sense gray. And it sucks. But the challenge for all of us is to have the fortitude to know when it is that we're bound by black and white and when it is that we're allowed to create gray out of black and white. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit. That should have been a gray area that should have been determined. And after the match, the commissioner of officials, I'm not sure what his title was exactly. It seemed like he was the head official, but he wasn't in uniform, went over to the explanation, and he did a pretty poor job of explaining it because what you just said now makes more sense. He never said it was bad time. He just said that they couldn't determine how much time had run off the clock.
What
And
he intended to say, and it's probably going to cost him his job. What he intended to say was that they were not allowed by black and white rule to decide.
Okay. And I hope they change that, in some way, especially with the technology of having review in college. that makes a huge difference as well.
Well, they're stuck in a tight situation because the referees who know the sport are making one decision, and then people from the NCAA are holding them to the fire as a lawyer might. You know, and so it comes down to, you know, like if we had video review, it would come down to Sally Marquez watching a video and telling us what to call.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, and then the hope is that the system, I guess, gets fixed in that way of giving a little bit of the refs a little bit more ability to make that decision and make the right one based on the situation at hand. You know, because the reality is it wasn't a very good.
Knowing
They were put in a bad spot.
knowing the NCAA, just from my sport, anytime there's controversy in a big time situation, usually the rule changes. So
Yeah. Well, that's good. I hope that happens.
On-
Well,
On the upside, we all promise 5-year-old kids and their parents that wrestling's going to teach us to cope with adversity and the times when life's not quite fair.
yeah, that's exactly true too.
hey,
But
Adam,
I just, yeah.
oh no, never mind. I was just trying to figure out what order you wanted me to open these videos up in.
You could do the longest one first, Nate, if you
Is
don't
that
mind.
the one where you're talking?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll make sure I turn it up.
Okay, sounds good. So this next video, like I said, guys, sorry, this is a little bit of acting, but it's just trying to get us to create some situations where we can kind of get our brain thinking and discuss some of your guys' thoughts. But here I'm actually talking a little bit about positioning as we approach the out of bounds line, kind of straddling that line like I mentioned earlier, and putting ourselves in the best position to make that call and look good doing it, whether we blow the call or not, as Rusty had mentioned earlier. So Nate's going to play it. I am talking a little bit in this video about that, and then we'll discuss the situation.
Let me know if you can't hear it.
All right, so we're going to go over a situation here. We'll do several over the course of the next couple minutes, but what I want to talk about as an official from a position standpoint is my positioning as they work towards the edge of the mat. So one, I want to stay in between them, right? So if they're circling towards the edge, as they circle, I'm kind of coming with them here, but I'm anticipating motion coming out towards the edge. So what I want to do is really straddle this line. So as they work their way out, I can see I'm in good position to make that call and know if they're fingering down or not. If they're not, we can blow them out, we point, we go work neutral, and there's no discrepancy or argument, okay? If the feet are in balance, I'm in good position to say, okay, they're in control, I love, there's 2 feet, that's a 2 takedown, okay? Then we can blow them out if that's what causes it. But here's a situation I want to talk about, and we're going to look at it, and then we're going to discuss it a little bit, so go ahead. You're going to take down, that's 2, right? So he starts to work back into the mat, we start wrestling, we're still in, okay, now his knees, let's start to establish near fall, and his knees come out, okay, so now we're blown out of bounds. Okay, but if his knees were to stay inside the cylinder, right there, near fall can still occur, right? Well, are we out of bounds based on the criteria of a 2 takedown, which is the toes in, or do we allow wrestling to continue? Okay, that's the first one.
All right, so what are your guys' thoughts on this? So did you guys understand the scenario? I know he kind of crawled back in, but let's say that you establish a takedown, you have your feet in bounds, and wrestling continues, action continues, and the bottom guy ends up working back towards the mat, or the top guy gets his knees back in the cylinder. Do we allow wrestling to occur there, or are we blowing them out?
I would
They're
say
out.
let him wrestle. Is it,
No, they're
is
out.
it neither within
Continue.
the field?
No, they're out.
Oh, they're out. Okay.
Again, I think you'd look at timing and momentum on that one, Adam. You know, I mean, live is a little different than your scenario there, but
Yeah, but let's assume that action continues kind of all simultaneously. Like he hits the mat, he kind of works back in.
then
You
I
know,
say it
and
continues, and again, the knees come back in, you know, quickly, you know, there's near fall.
okay. And Mondo, I don't think is in the meeting, but I wanted to put him on the spot because last year at the state tournament, I had a situation like this where the kid took him down, had feet in bounds established, the momentum continued. His feet never came off the mat or came out of the out of bounds line, and he ended up transitioning to getting back points because his knees worked his way back in, and they never stayed in. They never went out of bounds. But
Well,
Armando was saying that the takedown is established with the feet, right? But once that happens, they're out of bounds based off of the time
Correct.
that the feet or the supporting points are only for the takedown.
Correct. No, and he's correct, Adam. The rule for a takedown is feet got to come down in the mat, right? His toes, like he shows in the rule book, right? So that's just a takedown. You can't after that. It's done with because that's the only rule that allows you to score where they're out of bounds and your toes are still in the circle. Other than that, there's no more wrestling after that.
So,
You
but
can't come back in. Yeah, because his knees are all out. So the only thing that happened there is he got a takedown because his feet stayed in, like that video you're showing, right? He can't crawl back in. He can't scoot back in. That's he got 2 takedown, but after that, nothing else can occur after that.
Okay, so you
actually, I agree with. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
and
Takedown
Jason,
establishes what?
he established a takedown with his toes in, right?
A
That's the
takedown
rule.
establishes what?
Established with his toes in.
Scoring.
Takedown
knees are
establishes
out, right?
control.
Action.
Well, control the takedown, but his knees are out. He's completely out. Gets control. His knee and his feet come back down. It's a takedown, but after that, there's nothing else after that.
Disagree.
But
Why is
aren't his feet the supporting points?
Yes.
But in the rule for a takedown, that's the only rule that.
So if there's 2 supporting points in bounds,
No, but
then
his
wrestling
feet,
continues.
his feet are not scoring from that point. His feet are not supporting points because his knees are in, right? To score from a pinning situation when they're off the mat, his knees have to be in the cylinder. Yes or no?
yes, but
Okay,
but
so
we're
if his
saying-
knees are if his knees are out of bounds and he scores a takedown because his feet come down in the circle, it's a takedown, but he can't get anything after that.
Sure he can. He has control. He can pull the guy back in.
No, you can't pull him. Your knees are out. You can't pull him back in, Rusty. He's out of bounds.
And how did he get a takedown?
Because the rule in the takedown, he could be out of bounds with his toes in the circle. Well, as long as his toes stay in the circle, down on the mat, he can score a takedown. Other than that, there's nothing else that happens. If his toes come out, he's out of bounds.
Toes never went out.
Agreed. The toes stay in. That's how you got a takedown. But he can't score anything because his knees are out of bounds.
Takedown
He can't
establishes
score.
what?
He can't get anything past that.
He can't establish any kind of near fall criteria, or he can't establish any more points because he had already established control. So no other
Control
points
is the
can
key
be scored
issue.
after that.
If he's in control, he can move that guy.
So what's the rule with the takedown control and a takedown with his toes in, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the rest of all his body is out of bounds except for his toes. So it's the takedown. Okay, to score a near fall while the defensive guy's off the mat on his back, what has to be in the circle at that time?
His knees.
The knees.
Okay, so if it's a takedown, when you got a takedown, his knees were out. Yes or no?
And he had control, so he got him back in.
No.
That's what they call control.
Okay, so
Control is when you can get your
established.
knees back in.
No, you
It
can't pull
depends too
yourself.
if it's a back to or a feet to back, because if it's a feet to back, then you could just blow that dead right away. But if he, you know what I mean, gets a takedown and they're on their stomachs and then he pulls them back in and then turns him, that's a different situation too.
Now I'm wondering if
Well,
it's too small.
But again, say he establishes control and the offensive wrestler is still on his feet. What if he gets him in that like wheelbarrow situation? He's got control. He can't pull him back in.
Okay, let's take away the takedown, Adam. Say they're in that position and he pulls them off and he pulls them back. Are you gonna call them out or not?
Out.
No, they're out.
Okay, but wait. So what's the difference from the takedown with his knees out and he gets to pull him in? Why don't you allow him to pull him in right now compared to a takedown? What's the difference? He has control both ways.
Well, the main thing that I honestly don't know what the answer is, and I wanted to create discussion, so I'm glad that we're having that. What I'm trying to figure out is, does the feet still consider the two supporting points, which would
No.
allow them to be in bounds and continue wrestling?
No, the answer is no.
No, the let you get the takedown only.
Correct.
Now,
That's
if
what I'm
the
gonna
knees are
establish.
in the
Only the
cylinder,
takedown.
then you can get the near fall or the fall.
The way that I like to call that one is I like to give them like a quick reaction. You know what I mean? So if somebody like lands and then they're able to, I don't know, within like a half a second, pull them back in, then wrestling continues. But if they land and it's, you know what I mean, straight on their butt and it's like a toe dragger and, you know what I mean, it's clear that there's no wrestling going to continue past that, then it's just a takedown and I blow it out.
I agree
Okay,
with that
but
too, that-
okay, well, and that usually happens.
There's no
but in a
action.
situation, yeah, but if there's action as they hit and the feet stay in bounds and they work their way back to inside the cylinder and somehow the guy ends up on his back and the knees are inside the cylinder, do you allow that to continue to wrestle, or do you blow them out for the process of them only being in bounds on their toes
So
if
if
there's
he-
a takedown?
If he gets the takedown and they are scrambling and it goes into a near fall situation, I'm going to blow that out. If it's just a takedown and he establishes control and, there's no near fall situation, then you can continue to allow that wrestling to happen. And then, if they do come back in bounds and then there's a near fall situation, then you just flow with the wrestling. That's how I would call that situation. But, it really depends what the kids give you. So,
Well, but what
Can
Willie
I-
is saying, oh, go ahead.
Can I give you guys what it says on the rule book on 515C? Near fall points or falls shall be earned only while the supporting points of either wrestlers are in bound. In a pinning situation, when all parts of the defensive wrestler's shoulder scapulars are on the mat beyond the boundary line, if the feet, including toes and heels of the offensive wrestler are the supporting points, the offensive wrestler's knees must be inside the boundary, whether in contact with or above the mat. So the cylinder straight up. If you're on your toes, your knees have to be breaking the cylinder or inside the cylinder of the mat.
Correct.
and that's what I'm saying about, if we have a near fall situation that it's pretty obvious whether or not, it's a toe dragger or if their knees are in. So, if they're scrambling at the edge of the mat and it's a toe dragger and like I said, he lands up on his back, you know what I mean? That's a pretty clear one that you can just blow out.
Well, and let me try to make this clear for you guys so you understand what I'm saying, because I'm kind of saying it's two different situations. So you establish the takedown, your feet are in bounds, right? So that's considered the supporting points to give you control with the takedown. Okay, but then they still continue wrestling or action happens on the edge of the mat. The 2 feet never leave that out of bounds. And then when the near fall starts to occur, your knees are inside the cylinder.
So then just continue it, right?
Well, the takedown is given with the toes on the mat.
Yeah, and then it's not-
Wrestling from the way I was taught, again, I'm coming out of California, from the way I was taught, if the knees do not break the cylinder, you're now done. You can't pull them back in at that point. You've got to have your knees inside that cylinder to do
But what
anything
Adam's
else.
Also, what I don't want to highlight, Adam's also saying that the kids were never in near fall with the toys out. They were still considered two takedown, but they were not in near fall criteria. Then before he goes to near fall criteria, now the knees are in. So we stayed in, we had our 2 points of contact in. And now that we go into near fall, I would start counting too, because we've never went out of bounds, because when he was in near fall, his knees were always in, is the way I'm hearing it explained.
Yes, that is true, Jeff. That's what I'm saying.
And I
near
agree.
fall criteria-
But let me ask you guys a question. When you score a takedown and only his toes come back to the center of the mat stay inside the cylinder, right? Are they in or out after the takedown?
If the toes are in, then he's in, as long as it's not a near fall situation.
So every time that what I'm saying, so the guy scrambling, he lands and his toes are in the circle. You get a 2 takedown. You're gonna let wrestling continue?
Give it some reaction time, If he lands and he's settled, then yeah.
The answer is either
Yes.
no. The
Simple
rule
yes.
for a takedown with his toes are in, that's a separate rule from anything else that's given, right? Because they're totally out of bounds. His knees are
Takedown
out.
establishes what?
Control.
No, control has to happen before a takedown. Correct?
Yeah, and if you got the takedown control and his
Okay,
knees are
good.
in, say I go
So you get-
get behind somebody.
Let's just
dip,
go through the
drop
rule
off.
with that special rule. He can get a takedown. He has to have control. He gets a takedown. He's totally out of bounds. That's in bounds is his toes. Right? So he gets a
It's
takedown.
not out of bounds
After-
unless you're
after-
near fall. If you're
Hold
near
on.
fall,
After
then
that
it's out of
fact, if he's near fall or not near fall, they're out of bounds. If he's not in near fall criteria, you're gonna continue letting them wrestle?
I mean,
Exactly.
it depends. If I go and I dump you on your side of your hip and I come in and I'm on top of you with no near fall and I can pull you in within a
No,
quick
no,
time.
But
I
you're
mean,
already
it
out of
just
bounds.
depends.
Yeah.
For most parts,
Re-
we're really right.
Your knees are out of bounds. You can't pull them back in, bro. You're out of bounds. The only reason that rule is stated. This is the only way you can score while everybody's out of bounds. Those 2
If-
feet come in. That's it.
If
Other
the
than that,
knees are out of the cylinder.
correct.
You have
Correct.
to give them the reaction
And
time.
FHS.
If they turn to their back in a half second, then you can just blow that dead. But if they settle there for a second or two, you know that's a takedown, and you know what I mean. You got to give them a chance to work in. If they're not on their back, you can't
Nope.
blow that out.
Once
because
the
the-
knees are out, you cannot score near fall or fall. That's what Willie's
Right.
saying.
No, you can score
You
can
can
score
get
the
the
fall.
takedown, but once the knees go out, you can't bring them back in.
You can score the fall by the rule book.
That's not correct either,
No,
though.
you
So
can't.
once your knees go out, if you score the takedown, let's say both people land on their bellies. You know what I mean? That's not dead wrestling yet, unless it's a near fall situation. So you still have the chance to work right there.
What?
I like to see that when it happens to see if you
Yeah.
can actually do that, but
It's probably not going to happen because
we're
most of the time,
talking near fall
wrestling.
and falls. That's where we started this conversation with near fall and falls, but everybody's going out to a what if this and what if
Near
that.
falls,
Well, if you want a near fall and fall, it's out of bounds. It's that
Yeah,
simple.
but man, you brought a. I preface every meeting except for wrestling for whatever reason with if you have a what if question, save it for the end. This turned into a lot of what if, but it's a good discussion.
Let's flip the coin at him. So head and arm. So his butt's all the way out, his knees are out, but his feet are in. A head and arm, right? So you're gonna give him 2,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you gonna give him back points?
No.
No, takedown. and
Okay,
out.
so what's the difference?
I
if
don't
it's
even know
the
if
other
I
way?
would give him takedown. If he
Why? His
lands
feet
out
are
of
in.
bounds,
The rule says
Heels
his
counted
feet
in.
is in.
but it's feet to back. It's feet to back.
It doesn't say which way his feet have to be. His feet have to be in the cylinder. That's it for a takedown.
As long
But
as
if it's a
as
near
long as
fall-
his feet are in, he is still in control when his feet are in.
yes.
We can wave off back points, but if he uses his feet to pull his knees
No.
back in, he can
Sorry,
now
near
earn near fall.
Nope.
That's
Nope.
the
No, they're out of
definition
bounds,
of
Rusty.
control.
Rusty.
Hold on. Okay, so
You
the
can't pull it
last
back in.
part of the rule clearly states the offensive wrestler's knees must be inside the boundary line, whether in contact or above the mat.
No. We understand that. That's a.
So then why is there any more discussion?
Because
what we're
he can
saying-
use
what
his
we're-
feet to pull his knees back
No,
in because he's in.
No, he
fucking
can't.
control.
If he gets past the cylinder, he's out. Action
If it's
stops.
if it's feet to back, then yeah, once he goes out of bounds, there's not control established until they land. You know what I mean? That's like just with every big guy. If you've ever seen the
Only thing-
pancake
if
or
he
the
goes
roll,
feet to back, if he goes feet to back, Diego, you can't count near fall.
Yeah,
he's still in
and I wouldn't
control.
count takedown either.
He's still in control.
Have to count the
He's still
takedown.
in control.
If his knees are in, I would count the takedown. But
If
let's
his
say he
knees
goes
are
feet.
in,
That's what you get wrong.
This is
Takedown,
what.
Look,
hey, let's send this to NFHS and have them give us a definitive.
It's already a definitive. It's in the rule book. It's
And
already-
I'm agreeing that he's out of bounds. Takedown 2 points, out of bounds.
I agree. Without all the what
Beers.
ifs, you go to your back, you're out of bounds if your knees are not in there. End of story.
You guys need me to have Scott send this or have Scott?
So just so I'm clear on that, if there's like a headlock, 5-point move, and the guy tosses him out of bounds, but he lands with his feet in bounds, but his knees out of bounds. We're going to call the
No
2
back
takedown
points.
there, but no back points.
That is a takedown
Correct.
and out of bounds. No near.
I will
But if
say that I
you
don't agree with
stop
the
the
takedown
match,
call, but
if
I
you
will
stop
call
the
it
match,
that way if
you're
that's how
wrong.
we're calling it. I will
Rusty,
call it out of bounds.
for the
You know,
rules, you're
past
right.
If it
experience.
says they don't get
All right,
near
all right. Adam, you want me to move on to the next clip?
This is all I'm gonna say. What I want us to think about or understand is, does the 2 feet establish your 2 supporting points to continue wrestling? That's really the question.
No, unless the knees are inside the cylinder, on
Correct.
or above.
But the cylinder is
Correct.
for near fall. That's
The cylinder
about near
is
fall.
for
All right.
takedowns, toes
Hold on.
in,
Hey,
knees
hold
out,
on.
takedown, out.
Hold up. Let's let Adam finish his point, and then we can discuss again.
I'm sorry.
That's all good.
No, that's fine. I'm glad we've had this discussion, because that was the whole point of this. We have mixed reviews, and so we might have to continue this conversation another 10. But what I'm really just wondering is, and Willie is saying no, you know, and he's with Mondo, which, you know, I honestly don't know exactly what the clear-cut answer is, because I see Rusty's point too, and I made the call based on what Rusty's saying. So we're just basically saying, do the toes count as the 2 supporting points that are inbounds to allow wrestling to continue? Whatever happens from there, now you make the decision on your near fall and stuff based on the knees being in the cylinder. You know, we all understand that. I'm just asking if we consider that to be the 2 supporting points. We have mixed feelings about that. We may have to continue that for another day, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. So
Adam and
let's move.
Rusty, they did a PowerPoint a couple years ago on this when they went with the cylinder. I'm gonna see if I can find it, because in that PowerPoint and everything else, they specifically said no. I'll look for it and I'll send it.
You're saying they specifically said no for that
For
wrestling can
continuing.
continue on the edge?
Yes, 2-point takedown, toes in, knees out, blow it out.
Okay.
That's from NFHS.
And if that's the situation, I'm completely fine with that. And the idea of this is to all get on the same page, right? To all be on the same understanding of how we distinguish or make those calls. So if you find that and that's clear, then that's great. That was the whole intent of this situation or scenario. So.
All right, we got.
All right, let's go to the next.
About another 5-10 minutes that we can show clips. Which one do you want me to show?
You just go to the next one. Any of them from here on out is pretty fine. The rest of them are pretty straightforward, I think.
Not with this group, I just learned.
That one was on purpose to be controversial, and I'm glad it was.
Adam, way to stir the pot, dude.
Yeah.
You need sound on any of these?
No, we don't need sound. So here we go. Pretty straightforward, right? His knees are inside the cylinder. Okay. He's getting near fall. He flips over. Are we inbounds or out of bounds?
That is a reversal and out of bounds.
Out of bounds.
You would give a reversal on that?
No, we give nothing. No.
No, nothing, right?
Points are in.
They're out. No,
But
remember in the rule book, it says, hold on. In the rule book, it says if the defensive wrestler, part or all of his scapula are considered to be all of his supporting points. So he's defensive now, right? So he's gone to his back. Well, now his supporting points is his back. So the offensive wrestler is completely out of bounds. So they're not inbounds at all.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one.
So do you give them loss of control there?
I mean, probably not. I would probably just blow them out. 'Cause they're out.
I say no, because in that particular scenario, his knees went out as the reversal was taking place.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, okay.
That's my thought. All right, here's this one. This one's pretty straightforward. Okay, we have.
Hey, Adam, wait. I love what I agree with the situation. So let's go back to the same thing we're taking about would you let him continue wrestling, right? So if his knee stayed in, that would have been a totally different thing. He would have got a reversal and back points, correct? If his knees would have stayed in.
But
yes,
but for that one, we're talking about the defensive wrestler's scapula being the supporting points.
So his knees will never be the supporting points if he's inside the mat. If he's, in other words, he got flipped right there, but his knees stayed in.
But he was on his back, so his back becomes a supporting point.
Correct, because he's now the defensive wrestler.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
No, he's
Yes.
not, because he didn't reward reversal. So it just went.
So going back to the original thought of what we were talking about originally, it's the same theory, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I see what you're saying.
Right. So I'm just trying to say we're fighting over something, but we just decided that that's not part of the situation, right? So, and I understand what you're saying, but I just kind of make you think about that situation what we were talking about originally.
No, you're right. So what do you think, Willie, in that situation?
No, I agree with you, but I'm saying from the very first thing we were talking about, would you let them pull them in? Would they stay in? You know, they're out of bounds. Like he said, all the knees were out, his feet were in. He got flipped over. They're out of bounds. You're not gonna let nobody move. Right? You stop that.
Can I read something off of that PowerPoint and I'll send it out?
Sure.
All right.
No, I was just letting you think about that, Adam. Just the thought of what we were talking about originally.
No, you're right. Well, I guess the difference for this one to me is that when near fall potentially is established in that regard or that one, that becomes all the supporting points. So that I think that's like the difference for me on the edge on a takedown versus when you go to your back. But
and that's the answer. A takedown, and he hasn't established control, right? So those two different situations we're talking about too. He had control between wrestling. This would happen. Nobody was in a neutral position and trying to get control, right? So that's another thing that you're talking about too. So but we'll review that part.
Adam,
good.
Let me read this, what it says. Okay, this is from the 2018-19 NFHS Wrestling PowerPoint, slide 33. Interscholastic wrestling is uniquely different than any other type of wrestling in the world. We are challenged by a wide variety of gymnasiums and mat sizes. The NFHS Rules Committee had a healthy discussion regarding toes, feet, and heels as supporting points. There was no action taken to add toes, feet, or heels as usual supporting points down on the mat. They were also not addressed as unusual supporting points. And I believe further on in here, it will, supporting points will apply to all positions. The only exception would be near fall out of bounds where the knees cannot go past the boundary line if the offensive wrestler's weight is on their feet, toes, or heels. Then it shows a picture of exactly that where the toes are on line. It says out of bounds, rule 518. Out of bounds occurs when there are no longer two total supporting points inside or on the boundary line. The total of two supporting points, excuse me, I need to adjust this. Give me 1 second, I apologize. There. The two total supporting points inside or on the boundary line. The total of two supporting points could be two supporting points of one wrestler or the other. And it keeps going through, but it specifically says if the knees are not inside the boundary, which we were taught to say cylinder, he is out of bounds. You give the 2 points, but we are now out of bounds.
okay. And that's good. That's good clarification. I also want to talk about briefly section 15 article 2 of inbound says supporting points are the parts of the body touching the wrestling area which may or may not bear the wrestler's weight other than those parts with which the wrestler is holding the opponent. When down on the mat, the usual points of support are, which now we're talking down on the mat, right? Because we've given the two, we've established a takedown. The knees, the side of the thigh, the buttocks, the hands, and the head. So it doesn't really talk about the feet. It's the usual supporting point. So that's not a hard and fast rule, but that's just something that they're looking at. So we're almost saying like once we transition to the mat and establishing that two, that the toes wouldn't really be considered the supporting points anymore. But thank you for that information. And yeah, if you don't mind sending that out, that'd be great to take a look at.
If you want to send that to me, Shane, I'll get it out to everyone tonight.
All right, so let's go through this scenario real quick. We have a Saturday night ride. We flip positions. Okay, just a simple swap, right? Looks a little confusing or could look confusing, but we're still in bounds. All criteria is still made. The knees never left the cylinder. All it was a switch of position.
I'll call you back.
We can go to the last one, Nate. I think there's one more, right?
There's actually
two
more.
Two more. Okay. Right, here's another one. So same thing. We're still in bounds, right? We're still inside the cylinder. This is one that's kind of happens simultaneously. You know, do you let that momentum carry back in? Is that two, or do you blow them out right there? Let's show one more time, Nate.
I want to say that's in just because, you know,
what
as he turns, you know, his back is starting to be exposed to the mat. So yeah, his scapula is in the whole time. And if not a scapula, then the offensive wrestler's knees.
Okay. So let's say that right foot comes out of bounds before you hit it. Are they in or out?
I would blow that out.
Okay. Good. And that's what we want to do, right? We want to be in good position. We're straddling that line and we're looking for our points of contact. So I agree. I think this was simultaneous. It looks like it's in bounds. I don't think you're going to have much arguments or, you know, I mean, no, people don't like what you call no matter what, but I feel like you're in position to make that call. The other thing that you're looking at is his right hand. Now, let's say that right foot goes out of bounds, but his right hand is inside. That's still a supporting point. So we're still in as that momentum comes back to the middle. You guys all agree with that?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next one.
And last one, and we'll close it down. Get your signs ready again. I know there's a few more people, so maybe we can add more to. Yep. So we'll get one more last team, Michelle, after we get this.
And this one's similar, guys, but this one's actually showing the right hand. So he's out, right? But that right hand is still in. So you want to keep an eye on that too and get yourself in a position where you can see that. Sometimes level changing helps you with that too. So, you know, the wrestler in the white singlet's kind of blocking your view. If you're up high, you can level change to kind of see that hand down below and understand that they're still in bounds when they carry that momentum back. Does that make sense? Everybody kind of agree with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's really all I had, guys. I appreciate the discussion. That was the intent, was to create a little bit of controversy. So I'm glad that it worked. And hopefully we'll get some clarification with the presentation that Shane has put together or that Nate will get later on. But the idea was to all be on the same page. So thank you guys for your time, and if you guys have a good rest of the evening.
Hey, before you get off, let's pull up our signs again and wish Michelle a speedy recovery.
Uh-oh.
Awesome, guys and gal. You guys have a wonderful evening. Shane, if you'll send that to me, I'll make sure I forward that on to the wrestling folks this evening. We appreciate everything.
Email. It's already there.
Awesome. I will get it to you. Anybody have questions for me in regards to registrations, anything like that?
I got one question. You sent me an email the other day, and it shows that I attended 3 meetings, but you put 2 of 8.
Yeah, I didn't. My spreadsheet isn't adding correctly, so I'll get it corrected.
Oh,
okay.
It's the same exact thing as you, Patrick.
Don't be cheating me, man. I know where you live.
Yeah. I won't cheat you. I promise.
All right. And he's actually mobile now.
What? You're lucky you're all the way over there in Vegas, man. Remember, I got a steel leg.
All right.
Nate.
Good evening. Thank
Need
you guys for
need
doing that
access.
for Dana and Michelle, and if you have a chance, shoot Dana. She's got everything off right now, but you can shoot her an email. She'll get it. So.
Oh, I was gonna ask about that because I got the email late after the Zoom. Can I still put up the sign?
Yeah, you have a sign right now?
Yeah, I just made it right now.
Okay, let's
Oh,
add yours to the video. I'll add yours to the video.
Oh, you can't see it though. I don't think you
Can
can.
I please get
Yeah, right
access
there, it's there.
to baseball?
All right.
Yeah.
On the
All right,
app?
everyone. Good
All right,
night.
happy
Hey, I
belated
appreciate
birthday,
your help.
Adam. Thank you. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you guys.
All right, thanks, Nate.
Good night. Good night.